The Minecraft Pokemon region just gets better and better, and PokemanFran has now been working on GMAX Pokemon. Now, we already have Mega Pokemon in the Minecraft region, but we also have GMAX Pokemon now as well, and I've started to see a few more Fakemon artists start to create both Mega and GMAX Pokemon, which I think is really cool because there is a bit of a difference to them. GMAX Pokemon focusing on the size of the Pokemon, and there are some enormous GMAX Pokemon that we're going to see today. Make sure you check out PokemanFran on Instagram, the link is down in the description, and let's have a look at these ones. As well as Mega Pokemon, the starters are also going to get GMAX versions as well. So first is Grassplode, which is our grass and electric type final evolution for our grass type starter. Now, all the Pokemon, of course, are going to be giant, and I love the clouds that are around its neck, just showing how large it is. Now, this is based on the lightning rod, which we can definitely see in the shape of the neck and the head. Also, based on nuclear TNT, we can see that toxic waste kind of logo on the chest of the Pokemon here, like we see in the nuclear TNT. And then it's also based on the giant creeper from the Villager News as well, also showing its size. Quick Pokedex description, it says with its head in the stratosphere, it draws in all the electricity from storm clouds. Its explosive power can be devastating. Our fire type starter Ghast was a fire and ghost type Pokemon. Now this is based on the Ghast from Twilight Forest, and I love that in Ghast that flowing lava tears, definitely giving it a very sad demeanor, but it's also got like dripping lava coming off it as well, which I think is really nice. It says its molten tears rain down on everything beneath it, causing devastation wherever it goes. And of course, GMAX Pokemon are really large, so that molten lava raining down from the top of Ghast I think is a really cool idea. And then our final evolution for our water starter is Squizard, which is a water and psychic type Pokemon. Now, this is based on the Kraken. Now, the Mega version of Squizard was also based on the Kraken, but this is different because it's also based on shipwrecks. So that giant shipwreck has kind of become the head of the Kraken here. The Dex says its increased size has made it hyper intelligent, but it needs a shipwreck to protect its vulnerable brain. So it kind of works like a skull. That makes sense. If you haven't checked out the Mega Pokemon for the Minecraft region, I will link it down in the description for you to go check them out as well. So next is Mycelium, which is ghost and poison type. Now this is based on Mushroom Island, which is of course covered in mushrooms. So I think it's perfect that the entire back of the GMAX Mycelium is covered in mushrooms as well. I think it's a really clever idea that the horns have become giant mushrooms as well, those really long stalks. The Dex says the atmosphere around Mycelium is filled with toxic spores, preventing most living things from being near it, which I think fits this Pokemon really well. Of course, the other cow-based Pokemon here, we have Moo Blossom, Fairy, and Grass type. Now, this is based on Moo Bloom from Minecraft Earth, but because it's in the GMAX version, it's going to be based on the entire flower forest biome. There's a few Pokemon today, because their GMAX is based on the entire biome of a certain area. So we can definitely see here on Moo Blossom that the entire back is like a giant grassy hill, completely covered in flowers, like in the flower forest biome. So I think that works perfectly. The Dex says the hundreds of flowers growing on its back produce a pleasant scent that can be smelled for miles, which is like the opposite of Mycelium. Next, we have Flockade with pure normal type Pokemon. Now, there's a lot that we could do with sheep here, but I love the GMAX version. It is obviously based on the Jeb sheep. It's also based on Bed Wars and other minigames as well. So because it's kind of formed into that structure, we can see it's based on those sort of minigames there. But of course, we can see the little sheep heads scattered throughout that giant tower. The Dex says hundreds of individual Flockade combined to create an impenetrable fortress. I don't know how it would move though. Can it walk? I'm not sure. Then next is Grommet, the ice and rock type Pokemon, obviously based on the goat, but like I said before about the biomes, this is based on also the entire mountain biome. Because the GMAX version of Grommet is so large, it's an entire mountain. Like that entire back is just a snowy, rocky mountain. But what I absolutely love, the highlight of this Pokemon for me personally, are the giant horns. Those horns almost look comically large compared to the rest of their head, but I absolutely think that's amazing. I think that's such a cool idea. It makes it look so dangerous. It just looks really angry as well. It says that the mountain on its back has its own climate, reaching so high that snow covers the top. Then next is Camoasis, the ground and water type Pokemon, and Camoasis was based on the camel and the desert well, but we've taken this a big step further when it's also based on the desert temple now. So we've obviously got that pyramid temple shape here, but we've also got that water flowing down like the desert well, which I think just really works as a cool combination here. We can also see on the desert temple the pattern that we can see on kind of like the shoulders of Camoasis here as well. The Dex entry for this one says it is said to hold a great treasure inside. It has enough water to make a desert oasis wherever it is. Then next, GMAX Iceberg, the water and ice type Pokemon. So of course, based on the polar bear, but this is also based on the ice spike biome, which we can see in the shaping of the iceberg on the back there. The iceberg, of course, taking over most of the Pokemon here. We can just see legs and a head coming from that iceberg. But we can also see the Pokemon Barnacle is stuck within that iceberg. Rather than having fish like we saw in iceberg, it's now got an entire Pokemon, which is really interesting. The deck says the temperature of its body reaches temperatures so low that Pokemon can freeze in an instant when they make contact, which makes sense why Barnacle is in there. Then next we have Brickroll, which is a bug and rock type Pokemon. So Brickroll is based on the Silverfish, of course, but it's also based on the Mossy Stone Bricks and the Stronghold Portal Room. I did see a lot of comments about people saying that Brickroll could be like a wishy-washy kind of Pokemon, getting a whole swarm of them together. But I think having one being completely massive to make like an entire fortress is a really cool idea as well, because it's like the opposite that you would think. Now the deck says even when enormous, it stays disguised as part of the fortress. Underground, it is almost impossible to detect. Then next, GMAX Deadeye, which is a pure poison type Pokemon, of course, based on the giant zombie mob. I love its huge arms and huge legs. They look really elongated compared to the rest of the body. The arms are that long, they almost look like they're dragging along the ground as it walks. Now the deck says at this size, Deadeye can absorb lots of damage, making it nearly impossible to bring down. So definitely sound like a very tanky Pokemon. I absolutely love the design of GMAX Scalebot. I think this is so cool. This is a pure ghost type Pokemon. Of course, based on skeletons, but it's also based on nether fossils as well. As we can see that rib cage kind of opening up and forming the shape of some of those nether fossils. But I think the arrows shooting through the rib cage and pointing to the sky are absolutely amazing. It's interesting how the skull is kind of upside down as well. Like it doesn't look like it should bend that way, which definitely makes it look very, very creepy. The deck says that its enormous ribcage opens up to propel a devastating volley of ghostly energy, being in those arrows, of course. Next is GMAX Ravagite, the dark and ground type Pokemon. I love the Ravagite, one of my favorites from the decks. It looks quite different here. Obviously, it's the larger version, but I think that nose is what makes it look quite different. It still has those really large horns, though. Now, this is based on the Titan Ravager from Alan Becker's animation verse Minecraft. Now, we saw inspiration for the Warzoom from Alan Becker's animation verse Minecraft in the previous video, so to have another inspiration from that being the GMAX Ravagite, I think is really cool. The deck's entry for this says that this tremendous size, their appetite for food and destruction becomes insatiable. Next, the GMAX Endermon, our psychic and dark type Pokemon. The size of the hands here are absolutely giant, and it uses this for pummeling. Now, this is based on Indescent from Minecraft Dungeons, which has those really large hands, but the deck's entry for this says its hammer-like hands come crushing down with incredible force, shaking the ground around it. Because those hands are so giant, the rest of it actually kind of looks small. It looks very lanky and thin, but their head looks tiny compared to the rest of it now. Now, I did mention the Mega Wardoom before. We also have a GMAX Wardoom as well, but it's the Pseudo-Legendary, so it kind of makes sense that the Pseudo-Legendary and the Stars get both the Mega and a GMAX form. But I absolutely love Wardoom. Wardoom, the Dark and Ground type here. So this is now based on the entire Ancient City, and we can see the shape of the ribcage or the belly there is like what we can see in the Ancient City as well, with all those trapped souls inside of it. Now, the dex for this says the opening in its chest becomes a giant gateway to an entirely unknown world. So it definitely looks very threatening and is very mysterious at the same time. Make sure to check out some of my other Minecraft videos as well if you haven't before. Thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next one.